from PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's a little time. It's not a little time. Is there a little time? It'll be a bit of a time to look back at how we got where we are today with this historical episode that kind of is a look at the history of the Sleep With Me podcast. And the best part is it's just like other history lessons you might sleep through, but this one, totally cool. Sleep right through it. A history lesson I'd like you to sleep through. I'd like you to sleep through the history of this podcast because I made it sleepy just for you. Thanks. And, if you're new, it's time for Sleep With Me podcast to put you to sleep. Hey, everybody, before we get on here, Sleep With Me is built on empathy and compassion. That means being here for you. There's links to extra resources if you need them right now in the show notes. And it means supporting the members of our community, being a part of positive change. You could do that. There's links to organizations you can connect with to say Black Lives Matter, to say Stop Asian Hate right in our show notes. One of those organizations that I've been supporting is Beam. You could support them using the links in our show notes. Thanks, everybody. And, here's the sponsors that enable me to be here for you for free twice a week. Hey, everybody. I was wondering if you could do me a huge favor. We're doing an audience survey. I want to hear from you. So I'd be grateful if you could take a few minutes and just fill out our survey. Let us know a little bit more about you, what's working for you. And, of course, how can we find more partners to keep the show here for you on a regular basis? Just visit sleepwithmepodcast.com/survey today. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/survey. And fill it out. And let me know if you want to. And I can say thank you. Thank you so much at sleepwithmepodcast.com/survey. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody. Sleep With Me is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. In May's Mental Health Awareness Month and throughout June, Sleep With Me is proud to join the cause of destigmatizing therapy. If you've been struggling with relationships or having difficulty sleeping, meeting your goals, if you've been feeling anxious or stressed, BetterHelp counselors can listen and help. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional. You could start communicating in under 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online. And BetterHelp's therapists have a broad range of expertise that may not be locally available in your area. The service is available for clients worldwide. All you need to do is log into your account anytime, send a message to your counselor. It's super easy to schedule weekly video, phone, or even live chat sessions. And BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so they can make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. And so many people have been using BetterHelp that they've been recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. And again, I'm someone that utilizes therapy with a licensed therapist. It's a huge part of my ability to be here, to make the podcast, to live my life, and to be present and to flourish. And I really believe in therapy. And I know from my personal life that BetterHelp is helping. So this is just something you want to try out. If it's something you're interested in, if it's something you feel like you need or you want, our listeners can get 10% off their first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/sleepwithme. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/sleepwithme. BetterHelp.com/sleepwithme. Thanks, everybody. Sleep With Me is brought to you by Progressive, one of the country's leading providers of auto insurance. With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you could say what kind of coverage you're looking for and how much you want to pay, and Progressive will help you find options that fit within your budget. Use the Name Your Price tool and start an online quote today at Progressive.com. Price and coverage match limited by state law. All right, everybody, it's time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. And I want to thank Becca, who supported Grove. Becca has supported a bunch of other sponsors, too, and is really good about sharing on Twitter, tagging the sponsor, talking about it. Most of our sponsors are direct response, meaning the listener support and listener activity keeps them as sponsors so the show can be here for you. So if you're like Becca and you support a sponsor, let them know about it so I can thank you here on the Sleepy Sleepy Supporter Zone. The second part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone is you getting the support you need. If you need extra support right now, there's links to organizations you could connect with in the show notes. It's about supporting the members of our community and saying Black Lives Matter with our actions, standing in solidarity with the AAPI members of our community with our actions. And I definitely am interested in what are you involved in, or what causes, what organizations are you excited about? Reach out and let me know so I can find out more. But there's links to other organizations that I've supported or that listeners have let me know about right in the show notes. And that's the end of the Sleepy Supporter Zone, which is now over. Oh, Mystery Bard, a lot of people help out on the show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Poster Son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the Legend also edits episodes. Kenny, Scotty, and Jennifer. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Anna like banana. Leah does the
Thanks, Mr. Bard. I'm at Dear Scooter on Twitter and Instagram. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, everybody, this is Scooter here. Before I say, hey, are you up all night tossing and turning, I just wanted to give you, this is episode 502, a look back at the first 500 episodes of the podcast. And I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I can't believe I made 500 episodes since this episode, because I can remember making it, because it really, I'm pretty sure, unless this is the wrong episode, which is just as likely, that this was like one of the episodes where I really captured what it was like how the first 150 episodes of the podcast were really just a big experiment. And then how, due mostly to my work schedule and writing during my commute and stuff, that the podcast kind of formulated, oh, this is what'll work as far as the styles of the episodes, and then how listener feedback informed that, and how we got to where we were then. Which is pretty much, that was the foundation. I mean, within, I don't know, Scoots will talk more about it. And somehow I've made I really have I cannot believe that I made I would say, if I listen to that episode, I'd say, how many episodes you made since then? I'd say, well, 100, 150. But we've made 500 more since then. So it'll be interesting to see, some things have changed from the beginning to that episode, and some things have stayed the same. And yeah, thanks for being here along for the ride. This is a one history lesson you'll sleep right through. So let me throw it to Scoots on, hey, are you up all night? Thanks everybody. All right, hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. It's been putting some people to sleep for over 500 episodes. But in case this is your first episode, I want to set the stage for you. So this is a podcast that was just sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to do is create a safe place where you can set aside whatever's been keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, physical sensations, feelings, noises, whatever's keeping you awake. It could be any of those things. It could be something totally different. Whatever it is, I'd like to take your mind off that. What I mean by a safe place is, one, I want you to feel welcome. Now, this podcast, it doesn't work for everybody. I hope it helps you out. Give it a few tries. It's a little bit different. I'm a little bit silly. I've got creaky dulcet tones. I don't have the voice of an angel, like a sweet Bette Midler or Carole King. I don't even have a voice of Carole Kane. I mean, if I had Carole Kane's voice, I guess this would be a different podcast. I don't have any of those sweet, I have creaky dulcet tones. So what I'm going to do is send my voice across the deep, dark night. And I'm going to do, tonight will be a little bit different of an episode, but it'll still be full of meanders. I guess if you were going to use a pejorative term, you say I do a lot of yammering. Though I don't think that's in regular parlance in the U.S. I don't know about any other countries anymore. And that tends to be more aggressive. I don't think I think when someone uses the word yammer, that tends to be aggressive. Let's agree to do this together because this is an open, safe place. Let's take yammering back. Let's reclaim, repurpose, and not necessarily redefine, but let's shape yammering. Maybe it's that Y. Y's are very pointy. So what I'm going to do here, and this is kind of like how the podcast, I'm going to take that Y. I'm going to bend it a little. Ooh, yeah. Give it some curvature. Give the Y a little curvature. Even on the edges. I don't know if you can feel me, but I'm sanding the edges of the tips of the Y down. And yeah, now I'm going to be doing some yammering. Yammering. Maybe I'll just be yammering. And I don't know, like I just read A Brief History of Seven something. And Bob Marley was like a tertiary character in that book, Marlon James. And he wrote jammin'. And I'll be, I guess, yamming. Why don't we just cut out the, I guess that's totally different. You'd say, what is yamming, Scoots? I'd say, well, that's what I do here. It's like I talk too much and I ham it up. It's yamming. I'm yamming like it was a thing of the past. Because I do yam about the past. I yam about the future. And I guess if, like, say I did have a grouchy neighbor and they were walking by and eavesdropping, but like the kind of passive-aggressive eavesdropping where recording the podcast getting on their nerves, they'd say, what are you yammering about in there? And I'd say, man, there's no yammering. I'm just yamming. Like, I guess like there's jam bands too. I wonder if there could be, like, this could be a new thing. I mean, it'd be like a party of one, like it always is with me. BC, well, yeah, Scoots, he wrote a bunch of letters to Fish. He wanted to turn them into a yam band. But they said, geez, I think we're doing fine. You know, we got 13 shows at the Madison Square Garden this summer, so I think we're covered. And they said, well, yeah, I don't have a band. Well, I just yam. You know, I do yam in the middle of the podcast. So that's kind of an explanation if you're new here. That doesn't make any sense, which is how most explanations related to this podcast go. What I was going to do, believe it or not, I had intended for this to be the quickest opening ever, but I guess like I might as well keep going. I mean, when I got a good thing going, that's sleepy, strange, and senseless, but that we've repurposed. You see, this is healing. This is live literary healing. If literary, you know. I'm a word healer, a word repurposer. I don't know, like that's what like all these rugged dudes that like wear leather coats and stuff do. They say, well, yeah, repurpose redwood from the bottom of the Great Lakes. Well, and they say, what do you do? And they say, why are we, I didn't even realize we were in competition with you. Like, I'm very intimidated by your repurposing of redwood and your leather coat. Is that repurposed leather? Yes, because it's okay. You got a bit of a Banderas thing going there. Oh, you are? Oh, you're Antonio Banderas' cousin. That lives in my mind. Oh, another one of those. Yeah, well, what I do, I repurpose things too. I don't repurpose yams, but I've repurposed yammering into yams, which is not the same as a yam, which is like a sweet potato. This is a repurpose, and I didn't have the foresight to make up a whole new word. I just wanted to shorten yammering down, make it less harsh, because I think that was something in like 50 sitcoms they would say to one another. And my goal is to take yammering, repurpose it, I'm also a word healer. And no, I don't use mystical energy. I just use mental scissors. I just say, well, yammering sounds a little harsh. And sandpaper. So I sanded it. I bended it, bent it. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're correcting my grammar. I guess you're healing my words. This is really, really getting along here. Yeah, anyway, I was trying to make a point before you correctly corrected me. I appreciate it. But then I bend the words, sand them, and then snip them. So I said yammering. I said more like yam. That sounds nice. I mean, I don't eat yams. I mean, sometimes I do. But let's not get distracted by the yams because this is a whole new thing. Bit like jam. No, not like a jam in the refrigerator, like Bob Marley jam, or like jam, like what's your jam? I'm yamming. It's like the soft version of yammering. Exactly. So it's so smooth. Listen to, have you been listening? I've been yammering. Yeah, it's a little bit, I've got my yam on. And at some point, I usually like to work in some puns, like, yes, I am yammering. That would be if I had a shirt that no one would understand but me, that explained exactly what I'm doing, it'd say, yes, I am yammering. I am what I am. Even better, pun brain, except it doesn't make any sense. It's still a pun, even though it doesn't make any sense. It's a nup. What's a nup? It's a senseless puns here at Sleep With Me, where we get your yam. If you're new here, this is the kind of nonsense you can expect every 3 times a week. And the thing is, I'll be doing the yamming. You just got to kick back. I'll take the Y's, I'll bend them, I'll take the edges right off those Y's. And any other word, that's the word healing, word softening. I mean, I don't know if you buy a fabric softener or you have water softener. I'm your word softener. So you're right. Maybe healing was a little bit too that was maybe too much of a proclamation. I do like it though. Let's just say like I'm imbuing. I like the spirit of healing words, but really I just soften them. Okay, silence, even from my internal voices. So anyway, if you're new here, I'm glad you're here. This is a podcast about you to sleep. You don't really have to pay attention, but I'll be here for an hour to keep you company. It's a podcast about you to sleep, but believe it or not, you don't need, you're under no pressure to fall asleep. That's why it's so long. So you can just kind of kick back and just let me yam. I'll be here. And the whole reason I make the show is because I had trouble sleeping, and I still do. And I do have it's a distracting thing. I just wonder, as I've been here talking, putting the Y to the A to the double M or single M, I got to talk to a trademark attorney. With an imaginary one, of course, an imaginary one. But, as I do that, I just wonder if you were thinking about whatever it is that's been keeping you up the whole time, or if I took your mind off of it. So that's all you need to do. You listen and just fall asleep when you want. You don't need to remember what I was ideally, tomorrow you'll wake up, and if you worked with people that listen to this podcast, you say, that would be like an inside joke. You'd say, did you listen to Sleep With Me last night? I don't remember. One person might say. And then it'd be funny if one person was eating sweet potato fries. That would be kind of like a I don't know if that would be a pun, but it would be funny. And they'd say, I think he was talking about yams. I think he started a yam farm. Would you like a sweet potato fry? And you say, I don't. And they say, oh, wait, I'm sleeping. I'm dreaming this. So that's the idea of the podcast. As I said, the podcast isn't for everybody. If you're skeptical, though, give it a few tries. I mean, if you're up already and you can't sleep, I just want to help. So it's not an aggressive thing. I hope it helps you. I just can't guarantee it because, I'm weird. I mean, let's be straight, and I want to be, keep you company, but it's not going to put everybody to sleep. I hope it puts you to sleep. I appreciate your time. Tonight we're going to be doing, a run-through of kind of, a historical look back at the podcast, I think. So I'm glad you're here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you stopping by. And I really hope, not only do I hope, I yearn, and I work so hard because I really want to help you fall asleep. Thanks. All right, everybody, Scoots here. It's time to upgrade your apartment. It's time to upgrade your home, but do it the easy way. Go to livefeather.com and use the promo code SLEEP and join the furniture revolution. Just like music, just like movies, why would you want to own something that you want to change on a regular basis? Just like the majority of people don't want to be locked into watching the same movie every night, do you want to live with the same furniture forever? Because I don't know about you, but I've moved enough times and lived lived in enough places to say, you know what? It might just be easier if there was a service that I could just rent furniture from, but not just any furniture that's stylish, furniture that's well made and looks good. And that's why you got to check out Feather. I mean, people move between 6 and 8 times before they hit their early 30s. Feather is a furniture rental company designed for people who want to feel at home no matter how often they move. They save you money. I mean, furnishing a one-bedroom can cost upwards of $6,000. And with Feather, you can furnish a bedroom with high-quality, beautifully designed furniture for the cost of your monthly utility bill. The delivery team brings the furniture directly to your home in as little as 7 days. No setting up a separate delivery through a third party. So you could go from an empty apartment to a fully furnished home without lifting a finger or assembling anything. Just picture that. New chest of drawers, a new nightstand, a new bed frame. And they have everything. Rugs, lamps, wall art, and more. And then let's say you move to a different place, different layout, maybe a little different style. No problem. You can easily get furniture that works for that space. Plus, by renting from Feather, you're choosing a sustainable alternative to fast furniture that won't end up in landfills. Feather has changed the way I look at furnishing because I know I'm going to be moving at least a few more times in the next 4 years. And I'm tired of putting furniture together with a little wrench. Then I'm just going to put on CL for free in a year or two. I want something that looks good, that works well, but is hassle-free. And that's why I love Feather. So try a new way to furnish your home. Right now, Feather has an exclusive offer just for Sleep With Me listeners. If you go to livefeather.com and use the promo code SLEEP, you'll receive $500 off your first month. That's livefeather.com and use our promo code SLEEP for $500 off your first month. Get over there and send me some pictures. So thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, it's time to talk about Headspace. And Headspace is part of my wind-down routine, and my daughter Sophia and I went through their sleep course, which is just a series of meditations to help prepare you for sleep and to be a part of your wind-down routine. And that's a big part of us getting the quality sleep we need. So if you're thinking about your wind-down, or you're wondering if meditation and mindfulness can improve your sleep, well, Headspace has you covered. Headspace is your daily dose of mindfulness in the form of guided meditations in an easy-to-use app. And while they have meditations devoted to helping you reduce stress and increase your overall sense of well-being, Headspace also has an entire library of sleep stories, sleep music, and other sleep sounds that can help you get the quality sleep you desperately need. For busy lifestyles, Headspace has wind-downs, meditations, and breathing exercises that are as short as 3 minutes so they can easily fit into any schedule, even yours. And Headspace is so easy to use. We have it on our phones. We have this skill on our smart speakers. So most of the time, if I'm by myself, I'll say, hey, smart speaker, open Headspace. And then I'll say, play today's daily meditation. And that's it. I'm ready to go. And with Sophia and I, we like to do courses, which, again, it's not like homework. It's just a series of meditations on one subject. We'll say, hey, we'll go through this saying, hey, start Headspace. And then we'll say, pick up where we last left off. That's all you say. And then it picks up right where you were in your course. And Headspace is backed by 25 published studies on its benefits, 600,000 5-star reviews, and over 60 million downloads. And you could try Headspace for free and start sleeping soundly tonight. Right now, our listeners get a 1-month trial to Headspace's entire library of meditations for free. Just go to headspace.com/sleepwithme. That's free. I said it. Just go to headspace.com/sleepwithme. This is the best deal offered right now. Head to headspace.com/sleepwithme today and let me know about it. Let me know what meditations you're doing and share with me your streaks. We're back up over, I think, 180. So, check it out and let me know about it. Thanks, everybody. Okay, hey, everybody. So this is kind of like our 500th. I don't know if it's a celebratory episode because for me, I guess the train is always moving. So I'm like, okay, I'm already like planning, episodes in the 510s to 520s. But I did want to take some time to look back. And in the past, in like AMAs that you can find on SoundCloud, and then in some of our story-based articles, I've kind of talked about a little bit about the production of the show. And in our year of podcasting, I kind of talk about how much work, it takes at least 20, it takes a lot of work to make the show. I mean, basically, a lot of work. So I've talked about those things in the past, but I want to just kind of run through historically, because I guess even for me, like I know part of me knows, because I've been here working, like, I mean, let's see, 500 plus episodes, that represents like, just the episodes, not the administrative work, like 8, 9, 10,000 hours of work. And then there's all the, like what I say, geez, I can't believe I made 500 episodes of a podcast. It's just but I just want to run through the episodes because so many people are new. Like, if you make a podcast and you're hearing this, and I'm going to do it, like I said, well, what's a way we could do it in a lulling, soothing way? That's also like the tradition of podcast straddles the line between engaging and boring. So be, I guess, like a retrospective, because, I mean, believe me, I'm betting there's going to be some surprises in here for me. And I don't know if we can do this in one super long episode or we'll see. Because in the feed here of our current host, it's there's 587 things in the feed out of 500 plus episodes. So I don't even know what the other, 60 things in the feed are. We'll see. So let's run through it and just take a look back at some of the episode titles, and we'll do them in 50 batches of 50, I guess, because that's like the so right now we're looking at, even though it's batches of 50, it's 1 through 37. And according to this, Sleep With Me podcast episode 1 was posted here October 18th, 2013 at 7:57 p.m. And the first episode we did was not the first episode I thought of, but it was I was trying to figure out what, it was the first episode I recorded. But it was about Hall & Oates, What I Want, I think. And it was just kind of analyzing that song in kind of a goofy, silly way. Very, very different than most of our episodes have been. It has a lot of music in it. And it probably needs to be taken down because it has people's music. But it was early on. It's just an experiment. The original content I had already thought of years, but I think towards was the Game of Drones and After the Glass Slipper. And the closest I got to launching the podcast was After the Glass Slipper, which is our reimagining of kind of what happened to Cinderella after she became queen. And then Game of Thrones, I think I thought of Game of Thrones, I almost started it, I think a year and a half before the podcast itself started, maybe. So maybe either June of 2013 or June of 2012. June of 2013 probably makes more sense, so. And I just didn't have, it just was too, caught up in the idea. So let's just run through these episode titles, and then we'll do... I guess let's run through them. So the first one was about Hall & Oates. Then we have Twainsy, which was The Walking Duds. Then Rats, To the Dogs. And then episode 5 was You Don't Have to Like a New Dawn or Accept It. So those were based on the TV show, which have always, I was watching that show, The Walking Dead. And I guess at the time, I mean, there was no one listening to the podcast. I think I had I don't think I broke 100 listeners till I broke 100. I don't know. I'd have to look back. Maybe took me a year. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe 50. I don't know. So all these early episodes, at the time they were coming out, it was just I was just making them to get an idea of if I was going to follow through on the podcast and what the podcast was going to be. And I think there are a few of those listeners still around, but, so the second episode came out, I mean, I don't know when it came out on the internet, but it got posted October 30th, 2013. And I guess this will be interesting. I don't know what the release schedule was back then. So the first episode was about Hall & Oates. Then there was 4 episodes about The Walking Dead. But those all had kernels of what the podcast would become. Like The Walking Dead, I was experimenting with recaps, a lot of facts, the facts section that would be in the future Game of Drones stuff, and then a little bit of fan fiction or fanciful reimagining, parody, whatever one's legal. I don't know if it's parody or satire, but that kind of thing. Then at episode 6, we had Memes Strike Back, which was this character, Steve, who's a famous meme, or was back. This was November 10th, 2013. And I think he was a meme in like 2011. And it was kind of just like, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was like a little bit too, I think it was funny, but I think maybe like it wasn't like, I don't think it was mean, but it was like, I don't know, I like this podcast to like where I'm always the foil, or institutions or whatever, or super rich people are the foils, and not even like villainous characters. I would like them to be empowered. So I don't know if like picking on Steve was the best. And I don't know if it was. I haven't re-listened to the episode in a long time. And I think he's from Boston, but I think, like, since I'm from Syracuse, like, it could relate to the character. Like, he just seemed like maybe somebody I knew. Then episode 7 was another walking dud. Then episode 8 was the first After Glass Slipper episode. So that would be our first serial story. And that was important to me, like doing a serial story. And this was, I think, right around, so it looks like most episodes were coming out once a week. And once we got to episode 8, we went to a twice-a-week schedule. And I don't know, like this, so this was just a reimagining of like what was, I named her Agatha, Cinderella's stepmother. What would she do after Cinderella became queen, and how would she react? And this was one of the first story ideas that I had like leading up to like when the podcast, over the 2 or 3 years that I knew I was going to make, like I wanted to make this podcast, but I was still procrastinating about it. Just because I found that idea interesting. I don't know. And then also the idea of serial stories at the time was important to me, just because I had like old time radio was based on serials. And while I wasn't around when old time radio was around, I was around like when people my age were like rediscovering it, or our parents were telling us about it, or we were watching movies like A Christmas Story. And I think my brother Carl was a big old-time radio fan when we were kids or in high school or maybe college. So, I don't know, I just like the idea of these goofy serial stories. So that was like where After the Glass Slipper, and you'll see it became a thing. Then episode 9 was another Walking Dud episode called The Convenient Pirate. Then After the Glass Slipper, and this is when we moved to a Tuesday-Sunday release schedule, it looks like. And then, let's see, we had After Glass Slipper, then a Walking Dud, then a Walking Dud North Pole Chronicles, which was just an idea that came out of the kind of fan fiction-y side of Walking Dud. Then another After Glass Slipper, we're at episode 13. We're already in December of 2013. And so we were going back and forth between After Glass Slipper and Walking Dud. And let's see, December. Then our first new, well, we had the meme. And then in episode 17, The Elf Nobody Knew. That was our first like improv story. I don't think that was written. And that was December 10th, 2013. And that was about an elf, that kind of was the forgotten elf. And so at this time I was writing, I was watching The Walking Dead and taking notes, and then I was writing After Glass Slipper episodes. And then, so at some point here, and not yet though, we're still on a twice-a-week schedule. Then episode 18 is Frozen Reindeer Tears, which is North Pole Chronicles. Then After Glass Slipper. Then this was another story that was a little bit older. I'd written the year Rudolph's nose broke. I'd made that story up to put my daughter to sleep that previous summer, and I was like, oh, I could use that for that podcast. I never started. Then another North Pole Chronicles, then part 2 of Rudolph's nose broke. Now we're in December 22nd, 2013. Then a North Pole Chronicles, and an After Glass Slipper. So a little break in After Glass Slipper there. Huh, that's interesting. December 15th. Looks like we moved to a three day a week schedule somewhere in here, I think. Let's see, After Glass Slipper, then Call Me Canada's Wonderland, maybe. That was episode 25. That feels like a more mature episode, to be honest. I don't know what it sounds like listening to it, but like that was another one where the seeds were there. It was about the song Call Me Maybe, which I think is the Canadian pop star whose name escaped Megan. I don't think it's Megan Trainor, but maybe it is Megan Trainor. I want to say it's someone that's name starts with a K, but they came out New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2013. And that was it, like just someone describing what they thought the song meant. Then The Tooth Fairy's Assistant, which was another just one-off fictional tale. Then After the Glass Slipper. Then the season premiere of Get Bezos, January 7th, 2014. And now we're on a three-a-day-week schedule for sure. And this was one of the mistakes I made. So I kicked off like Get Bezos because I had that idea for a series. Then I had another idea for a series, The Florida Project, which was based on an idea I had just for like a story or TV show because I wrote a screenplay about a retirement community. And I was always like, I'd visited a few retirement communities, and I was always curious about the oldest profession in the world in retirement communities, and that would be an interesting TV show. And so I thought, okay, what if there's a character going to try that in Florida, but he's not really cut out to do that? And it was like, again, we had no listeners back then, so it was very safe to try stuff like this. If I tried something like this now, it was very joking. It wasn't like encouraging the oldest profession in the world, and I tried to be as respectful as I could about it. But it was definitely like a little too edgy for now. I mean, just like The Walking Dead, it would probably be too, like a little bit too out there. Though I like to push the limits of the podcast. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to make 500 episodes if you're not really. There's no way to sustain something like this walking down the middle of the road, you know. But my mistake at the time was now we have 3 serial series for a while: Get Bezos, The Florida Project, and After Glass Slipper, and all of them were written. So I was trying to write an episode in like 2 days and then perform it, which was very hard. Luckily, we didn't have any listeners, or very many, so it was like a risk-free period. And I would learn that lesson, like, okay, you can only do 1 written series a week. There's just not enough time. Even if somehow I was working on the podcast as my job, I don't think, I could write. It just takes so much, anybody that's written anything or tried to, it's, really hard. So we were doing that for a while. So it would go Get Bezos, The Florida Project, and After the Glass Slipper, and then Get Bezos, The Florida Project, After the Glass Slipper. For a little while, and at some point, so this is through January of 2014, and let's see how long we lasted. Episode 38, 39, 40 was still just alternating all 3. Episode 41, Canadian Johns in Mexico. That was the Florida Project. I remember that episode. I don't know if it was I had trouble writing it or I knew that at that point I was like, oh, this isn't going to work, this Florida Project. Then After Glass Slipper, then Get Bezos into February. So now we're 3 years ago. Episodes, these are the 40s. And then the Florida Project ended right around my birthday in February. Actually, and... Then I tried to do another series. It was still about sexuality, I guess, or sexuality influence. Oh, wait, here's Get Bezos. So then I tried another series, which is, again, something comedic I was going to write, not for the podcast, which was a mistake. This was a repeat of the mistake with the Florida Project, where I said, well, this is already a project I've been thinking about writing. This was a movie I was thinking about writing. Because at this time, February 2014, I was still writing screenplays, thinking, okay, I'm going to work on this podcast and I'm going to keep writing screenplays and see which one, I don't know, but still having trouble with the half prose that you use to write screenplays. And I was rewriting something, and this was just a project I was planning on writing. And it was called Olympic Sex, and it was about two guys in their 30s or 40s who were both divorced and single, or one's divorced maybe, and they're best friends. And they were trying to get into the Olympics because they've heard about all of the loving that goes on in the Olympic Village, and they want to partake in that, and they want to be Olympians. So they're trying to, that was the premise of the movie, or the project. It wasn't a movie. It was like something I was going to write that I didn't write. And I said, well, this is a decent premise. And again, we had maybe 100 listeners. So it wasn't like, and early on listeners, the podcast was much more, not adult themed, but like looser and experimental. I mean, I think it still is, but just in a different way. And also I was less comfortable, so I was more likely to be flashy instead of having like a little more confidence like I do now, to be subtle about it. But I don't know, I can't shame myself or anything. It's like something I was going to write anyway. And but again, it was the same mistake. I thought, oh, let me try to add this, and we'll still do 3 serial stories. So this is February, and we're doing Afterglass Slipper, Olympic Sex, and Get Bestos. And that only lasted till the end of February. And then I said, I can't keep doing this. So then I switched to just like one series. And so then I said, I can't keep up with this work. So at some point, we just started releasing only Afterglass Slipper episodes. It looks like there was a couple bonus episodes in there. And then in March 11th, 2014 was the last episode 55 was the last Afterglass Slipper episode. Then we just tried like experimental stuff. So Russia versus Ukraine gold medal match, the elf who wouldn't listen, a dream paradox of probiotics. That was a character. Now there's a podcast, like I haven't listened to it. Chris Cathard, he has a podcast where they interpret dreams. This was Fraud Freud. He was a dream interpreter. Then Enjoy Every Sandwich, which was kind of about Warren Zevon. I think I remember a cafe I wrote that in. So it's weird how, like I said, I got to get out of the house. So I went into this San Francisco and wrote in the, what neighborhood was it? Something, Coal Valley, in a cafe there, 2014. Then we went back to Get Bestos, episode 60. And just straight trying to get through Get Bestos. So still finding what the podcast would be. So it's like 3 Get Bestos episodes a week. So you can see how mistakes early in the podcast paid off. Because, again, I didn't have a lot of listeners. So I was able to make this mistake of, like, burning out, like doing 3 serial episodes a week of different serials or the same ones, just not sustainable. And probably a little heavy on the ear, you know. So we did that till episode 70, and then at some point, like at episode 70, it was a new feature, Trending Twitter Tuesday from Sunday, and that was April 15th, 2014. And so then it looks like we would do 2 episodes of Get Bestos and then 1 episode of Trending Twitter Tuesday. So it started to give me a little wiggle room. So then we get to episode 75. And, oh, yeah, here's episode 76. That was the episode that caused me the most trouble. Like, we learned an important lesson. Episode 76 says April 29th, 2014, no restarts. That was like one of the early trending Twitter episodes. So it's new. I'm not trained in improv. So it's a huge learning curve. Still a learning curve. And that one, I just wasn't feeling it. And I think it had a really good episode about, something, the goldfish that wanted to be a mermaid or something like that, the bunny that wanted to be a mermaid. And so that was hard. Like, this one just wouldn't come together, and I didn't have the experience to just like ease off the gas pedal. So I even tried restarting and deleting, and there's just no way you can do that and come out with 3 episodes a week. When you're recording, you have to get sound. And you have to be willing to release it, and you have to have, this is just stuff I've learned with this podcast. You have to, stay calm and go with the flow. Like whatever the story swamp gives you, you kind of have to stay calm and accept it. And not every podcast is going to be, it just has to be your best. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so that was a hard lesson to learn, but I learned it and I have never forgotten it. And it's interesting that I learned it at episode 76. And again, because these are public, these episodes, it is like might be hard to imagine, but it's incredibly painful at some level to have something go out, at least to that internal critic part of me. I guess like it's both sides of that coin. So the critic part of me, it's like, this is going to be released to the public. This is humiliating and painful. But the flip side is there's really not, the critic is really blowing a lot of hot air. But there's also another flip side, which is like it really keeps me motivated to work hard because it is painful recording if I'm not prepared or like I'm overthinking or overstressed. If I can't be in the moment, it's painful. And then releasing episodes that the written episodes, if I haven't done enough writing, is painful. But it's a good pain that says, okay, let's just get this work done. So just a little interesting thing. So then, it's just another episode I liked. May the 4th be with you, Twitter Tales. And at some point that would become, was that like something about Star Wars started to work its way in for a little while. And then we're still doing a Trending Twitter Tuesday and then Get Bezos, the Belly of the Cookie Puss, Can a social media may even be a raconteur? Our first walking tour of San Francisco. Snakes and Ladders. These were some. I really enjoyed some of these episodes. Turing Test to Save the World Cup, 2014. Lionel Messi's sleep coach, Casey Kasem. And then at some point, I decided to start Game of Thrones season 4. Kicked off June 18th, 2014, episode 99. And that would be another important moment. So a lot of these important moments happened in our first 100 episodes where, like I said, okay, if I do these TV show recaps, it uses a different part of my brain. So I won't exhaust all this other creative energy. So taking notes and riffing off of notes and stuff like that, it's a different creative reservoir than improving stories, which is a different creative reservoir for me than writing stories and performing them. And all those three reservoirs have enough energy in them to make one episode a week. And then it's not easy, but none of them have enough to make more than one. Or in the case that they do, it takes a lot of work. So that's... I don't know elaborate anymore on that. So we started Game of Thrones. That was Wednesday, June 18th, 2014. And at some point around here, my brother got married. Then Bernie the Butterfly's first appearance was episode 100. Then episode 101. I still can't believe I even made it to 100 episodes. That was episode 101. Like, it was our first, recap episode. And that's a big milestone. It's hard to make. Making a podcast is really, really difficult. And especially for somebody that hasn't followed through on a ton of stuff, that was a big accomplishment, 100. I didn't think I'd make it there. But we made it. And then Game of Thrones. Then we have Ray's first visit, June 30th, 2014. Then Superdoll kicks off at some point. Is that the first episode? Toastmasters and Superdoll. Yeah, so right around here is where we settled in on the pace we would keep up for the history of the podcast, right around 100. It was interesting. So June 3rd, Superdoll kicked off, and then we would go, as we've been for 400 episodes hence, and that's what carried us, was this kind of 3-style system. And again, the audience was small at this time. And again, the show was able to grow with the audience. And I think the audience grew because the show grew in quality. And I think this is a turning point for the show, like being like, okay, let's, we can do these three things well once a week. This is what's going to work if we're going to keep making this show. And these are, again, the really hard decisions behind the podcast is how am I going to sustain this? Because it's not that hard tonight to sit down and record an episode and it's like a Sunday night and stuff like that. But then just keep it going is where the difficulty lies. Like putting out one podcast episode's not that tough, but then be like, okay, then we got to do it again tomorrow, and then with the day job and stuff. So this was just a really important thing to discover. So wow, that right around episode 100, stuff started to come together. And so we did Game of Thrones, and we did Goonies musical episode, Superdoll. And yeah, we just started getting in the groove. Superdoll, Game of Thrones, a seance with Abba and Napoleon. I remember that one was a good one. It's just weird. I can see myself in Berkeley thinking about that episode. Maybe, I don't know. And around these early episodes, too, I was like really searching for certainty because the audience was small. And I was like, I think I was like, at some point I stopped caring about growing the audience. I just said, well, the listeners will help me grow the audience instead of having to control it myself. I think like in these first 150 or so episodes, the first year and a half, I think I was like under the illusion that I had control over the show of growing or being successful, when really you only have control over the work, like the process and not the results. But these are some great episodes. So here's our first real-time recipe, episode 118. So a lot of stalwarts came up. Burning the Butterfly, real-time recipes, mall walking is episode 121. Game of Thrones. So a lot of things that would stay with us. Another Ray episode, because I was getting over-reliant on that. I had to stop myself at some point, because Ray is so popular that it's like, oh, well, that's going to be easier again. But I always have to make sure I don't burn anything out or I don't know. I always have to keep in mind now what's easy for Drew, what's best for the podcast, and what's most sustainable. And that's good because it's expanded my boundaries. 124 is Pitching Tim Curry, our first Pitching Tim Curry episode. More Game of Thrones, season 4. We're still on season 4. Another Ray episode. So I was doing a kind of a Ray episode a month back then until I disciplined myself. And then let's see. So, and I guess people that listen to Sleep to Strange, like some of these episodes are like, then we had season 4, another season 4. That might have been the last season 4 of Game of Thrones. Yeah. August 23rd, 2014. No Swag at CostelloCon. That was a fun episode. I remember that one. And a lot of these goofy episodes I liked. Then we're still in Superdoll. We're at episode 128. Then I started releasing these napcasts, which were the prayers from, and the, I think Tom and from, and again was like an experiment to see, geez, could I grow the audience of the podcast, which was, I don't know, I really like the prayers and Tom and the Game of Thrones episodes, again, so long. I guess part of me wanted to kind of feature that stuff too. Also, sometimes like I would have extra space on my hosting plan. And I would, at the end of the month, like your hosting plan resets and your files get archived on the current, so I would want to make sure I used all that space because I was paying for it. And again, I think at this point, like all the expenses of the podcast are coming out of my pocket for most of it. I mean, but it wasn't like, it was all doable. Then August, we started Game of Thrones season 1. And we're still on Superdoll. And let's see, 3 words Serena wants to hear. That was a good one. Lord Snow, Game of Thrones season 1. Outlanders is Skin and Willie, trending Twitter Tuesday. Big B, Little Alien. Another Ray episode, September. So I think I was definitely leaning on that hard. Because it's just like making up the improv episodes is really, really, now it's more experience, but still not fun. It's like something you always want to procrastinate on. Game of Thrones, Vikings versus 49ers, action movie. Let's see, whatever happened to the Transylvania twist. So we still, like, again, I like to theme things seasonally. when I can, just because I'm a kid. Like, I'm a kid at heart, and watching holiday specials and stuff like that. Damon D, who was on the backup, he made a song for that, Transylvania Twist. This is one of my favorite episodes. A creature from the Black Lagoon tells me he's originally from Big Goon. Again, that's just another favorite episode of mine. It was improv, made up. So, I don't know. I just I remember making that and saying, wow, I really liked that one. And so then we're into another milestone for me. Like, these would be the two biggest milestones is 100 and 150. So 150 was Game of Thrones, one of the ones towards the end of season 1. And also the conclusion, 149 was the conclusion of the series. Oh, no, it wasn't the end of Super Doll. Oh, okay, I'm mixed up here. But yeah, 151 was like a one where I met Lady Witchbeard, The Tale of Lady Witchbeard. Full title, The Tale of a Witch Named Connie, who would become Lady Witchbeard. And that was October 20th, 2014. That was just a character I could never forget once I met her. It'll be a while. I don't even know how long until we made the series about her. So then we were still doing Super Doll and Game of Thrones season 1. Spokesperson from Hansel and Gretel. Ray returns. So again, a lot of Ray. Here's 158, Sisyphus Reborn. So that was another recap episode. Can I talk a little bit about my struggles with addiction, I think, in there. And that was November 6, 2014. So that's our 1-year anniversary-ish. I think the podcast really started being available to public around November 1st or somewhere between October 20th and November 1st, 2013. So that was a recap episode where, I think that was the first one where I was really personal and really tried to be vulnerable, and it was not easy, but that paid off. Like that, where I felt like that was a big risk. Maybe this isn't bragging or anything, where I was really nervous. When I put the episode out, I said, did I reveal too much about myself? But now I'll never look back. I mean, the way listeners have been my safety net, I can never repay that. Like the boundaries inside me and outside me that have expanded, and how much I've grown past my limitations because of listeners' help is unbelievable. Thank you. Then another episode I really liked, Bjork Love Story. That was November 11th, 2014, episode 160. Then another real-time recipe one. This is still really popular. Pasta and tacos, accidental John Hughes. That was only episode 161. I would have guessed it was like 250. Let's see. Then we're meditation, another walking episode in November. So yeah, we're almost to 2015 here. Still like 8 pages or something of. Then another Bernie the Butterfly episode, 164. Game of Thrones. Me and Solonic and a Dino that dreams in silence. Episode 167, a really popular episode, Fall Asleep with Snowy Woods Guided Meditation. That's really popular with people. A lot of these napcasts were still going. Then the first Thanksgiving Day Parade episode with Greg, Ray, and the Gregor. Walking Tour of Lost Island. Heat Miser with a bowl cut. That was I remember making that episode. That was fun. Cracking Nuts to the Nutcracker. These were all themed to Trending Twitter Tuesday. Then the Roberta Claus Foundational episodes, one of these Scientists' Cold War on Santa. So probably a year at least ahead of time where this idea of Roberta Claus, that Santa, why does Santa Claus have to be male? But it started to and then the idea of a woman named Roberta Claus, that she would be the new Santa, somehow sprung out of this story. I don't know exactly how. Then more Game of Thrones, guided meditation as a Christmas present. And somewhere in here, I start to hear feedback from people that are still listening to the podcast. I can remember some of these episodes and hearing from listeners that are still listening. So this was but the show has always grown small. So 150 episodes, right around 150 was when Bobby Finger, who now he's risen to podcast greatness and writing greatness. He's on Who Weekly, and I think he still writes for Jezebel, but I'm not positive on that. But he was the first person ever to interview me, and that was right around 150, somewhere in here. Yeah, and then I think the second time I was interviewed was, I don't even know, maybe, I don't know, I guess, so just another moment where I was like, okay, this podcast is growing unexpectedly, slowly but unexpectedly in ways where I was like, okay, this is going to become something. At some point, I'm still at the point where I'm still trying to make it work, but it's big enough that this podcast has this big audience now. So it's like, I know it's going to work now. I mean, I just got to figure out how to make it work financially, but, back then, still maybe had a couple thousand listeners. I don't know if maybe we had 1,000 listeners at 150, maybe not, maybe, I don't know. I can't remember the statistics, but it was like, is this podcast going to grow enough? Or should I cut it back to be a hobby? Because a hobby would be once a week or less. Once a week, this podcast would be really tough to do as a hobby even. But even back then, I was like, I don't think this is going to be a hobby. I think this needs to be 3 times a week, and I think that it's going to keep going. And it was just pushing myself, on the late nights and the weekends, which is kind of still the case, but we're on the path. But yeah, so Last Royal. So then season 2 of After the Glass Slipper starts up at some point in here. And I said, geez, I can't. So I guess it's 2 years ago. We're looking at January. We're in the 180s. And I can remember these like they're yesterday. I really enjoyed season 2. I don't know. I really like Agatha. This is another big episode for me. 184, bathroom locks, boys tap, and a dance contest, because that was about my relationship with dancing as a kid. Valar Morghulis, My Life with a Perm, 187. That's another big episode. That would become a recurring theme. Plane Ride, that was Andrea G., who still listens to the show at some point. They gave me that idea, interesting. Wow. So January 2015, Dougie's Kitten Bowl Disaster Dance. That was Eli H., another person who wrote an article about that from Touch Arcade. He's a good friend of the show. Then Mother Nature's First Visit with Porto. And let's see, After Glass Slipper, Game of Thrones, Meditative Sleep with songs. I don't know what season of Game of Thrones we're on here, 2 or 3. Then the Olive Breadcrumb Pasta with Young Guns, episode 202. Can't believe we've had 300 episodes since this. This really is weird for me. It's like, okay, this feels like 100 years ago and 5 minutes ago I recorded that episode. There's a file in here just marked ZZZZZ. I don't even know what it is. Interesting. More After the Glass Slipper, Game of Thrones, taught by 2 teens on the 51A. I remember that episode because the 51A is the bus I used to ride all the time. Kanye's Laptop, that was December of 2015. Florida's Guided Meditation. So this was when my mom was I was dealing stuff with my mom at some point in here in spring of 2015. Yeah, Florida sounds from airplanes. Here's a thing you could record a podcast episode anywhere. March 31st, 2015, that episode came out. I recorded it while waiting for flights, with a mic that I would never use, with condenser mic, just the mic's built into my recorder. Because at this point, everything was bang, bang, bang. So if this episode came out on a Tuesday, I was probably recording it on a Monday and then just staying up to get it out on a Tuesday, or recording on a Sunday and staying up or getting up really early before work. So they would come out I was literally finishing the episodes and then they would come out. And again, it's still, it'd be a little while till I got help here with the show. But yeah, I remember recording that episode at the airports, Dallas Airport and Tampa Airport, I believe. What else we got? That was 2 years ago, huh? Wow, that feels not that long. I remember getting food with my brother before. Also, that's our first website crash, first big website crash. Who was it? Dr. Graham. Let me know about that. I think he was the first person. And I would return our RSS, actually, like our podcast host, and before I was managing it through the website. Rains Casimir, that episode came out April 5th, 2015. That was a big GOT episode for me. First Morally Safer episode, April 7th, 2015, 220. Let's see what else. Geese Man of that was our first appearance by Wilford Brimley. And we're still doing After the Glass Slipper. Spackle the Elf. That was the second. I think this is the second appearance of Orange Lux. I think also that was the first time I talked about my hobby of listening to Knox, K-O-N-C-K-S, April 21st, 2015, 226. And then we're winding down towards the end of After the Glass Slipper because of Feeling in the Pit of Your Lentils. And also Season 5 of Game of Thrones, House of Black and White. Wasn't it premiere? So maybe this is like the premiere. Then there's a Hypnotic Sleep is what one episode's titled. It doesn't have a show number or anything. Yeah, High Sparrow. Wow, these episodes, that must have been Season 5. What is this one? The Cat in the New Suit, as in a swimsuit from that's from, it's a Sir Pounce one. May 5th, 2015, Pop, a Mop, and a Candy War. That was another episode that was very, I don't know, that I just really liked. I was really happy with how it turned out and the characters. And so then that ended up becoming a two-parter. So Keeper of the Candy Mop. And I think we needed to because we were done with After the Glass Slipper. We didn't have a replacement. Yeah, and then another pitching Tim Curry, then a real-time recipe. So this was one of these times I was trying to write a new episode or a new series. Then Mall Walking, then Game of Thrones, Tsunami Sofa. That was the most personal episode I've ever done. That was May 26, 2015, 241. So still a long time ago. Right along here is where I started to do custom art for each episode, just because, I don't know, I like it. Another good one, Swaddling a Build Platypus. So now I can, hear a ton of people, so the show must have grown at some point in here, because now these episodes, I can remember talking to different listeners about these episodes. A little Water Globule Trembling with Joy. So, yeah, I know there's listeners, if you're hearing this, you're like, oh, yeah. Oh, this is when everybody sent me the tea. So, to June of 2015, right around episode 250, that would be another milestone. Cracker of Jokes and Cocoa Spice and Prisoner in the Yellow Pajamas. And then Bernie gives a commencement address. That was June 2015. That feels really like yesterday. Curse Dragon Love Story. And now we're getting to the tail end of this season of Game of Thrones. And then this is when I used June 25th, Case of Amnesia and a Thesis. I used a thesis someone sent me. Let's see, Impeached by Model UN. That feels like it was yesterday. And then our first Lady Witchbeard, I think, is getting ready to kick off. Or it was a repeat, remixing, reposting of a trending Twitter Tuesday, 151. Yeah, because we would do Lady Witchbeard would kick off. And Lady Witchbeard, at this point, I was taking things. At some point along in the last year, between 2014 and 2015, I stopped writing screenplays or rewriting. I don't know exactly when that was, but I said, well, this is podcast. I can either do one thing well. I don't have time. Before and after work and on the weekends, especially you have to write every day. So Like, I think at some point I was writing, like working on a screenplay in the morning and then the podcast at night as far as like writing time. So at some point that changed. So Lady Witchburn meant a lot to me, and maybe some of these other series, because it was like, okay, now this is my full writing focus. Is like breathing life into these characters to meander around. I can't tell you how terribly serious I take all the making the show and creating it. So then at some point, June of 2015 was when we started Metastasis News, 260. And it was Odios Estos Zapatos, Metastasis and Breaking Bad. Oh, no, that was episode 3. Language learning and double TV rewatch all in one. And we're still redoing a lot of, what do you call it? A lot of napcasts are still going. Then this episode got some emails. 4th of July parade with Ray and the Gregor, because there was a sound like sounds from the parade. So that was one of, like, it wasn't the first ambient episode I did, but I said, okay, after these ambient episodes are divisive, popular but divisive. And then Lady Witchbeard's episode 2, and then Metastasis News. This is when the podcast really fell into a groove in a good way. Like, I think that I'd finally grown into, like, the process. Up until, like, here, I can just feel, like, that it fell into a nice rhythm, work-wise, process-wise. So, yeah, we were doing, then the one I did, the Journey to an Inner Ear, and that was because of Justin McElroy had said something nice to me, so I wanted to do something that was kind of nice for them. And Breaking Bad, and we're still doing these. Then regarding algorithmic, what was that? I think that was one. That might have been another morally safer episode. And yeah, because then 270 is another morally safer. Breaking Bad, Snowden. So this is still with morally safer and Snowden. Then like grilling with President Gooseberry. I remember then some of these I record, like this was like the first time, or this only the second time maybe I was recording away from home. So I remember some of these episodes that came out in August. I was recording like at this cabin in Lake Ontario. Actually, I was recording them outside in a screen house. Again, like amazing, like when you have a budget, like because I was still doing everything myself at this point. And there's still, I think at some point in here, we did do the T-shirts to get new equipment, but I didn't have on-the-road equipment. So I was like recording into a condenser mic, actually, like on the top of my recorder. But outside with the, like, I made it work, you know, when you're, that's a wonderful lesson this podcast has taught me. But then also in here is when I got nervous because the podcast was still not even close to sustainable audience-wise. So I decided to try to make this a sleep show because they said, well, maybe I should make a daytime podcast about sleep. And maybe that'll help the podcast grow. Because at this point, we're in the 200s, right? And I realized how much work it was. We're almost to episode 300. And I said, geez, I can't keep doing this. So, like, I can't keep, like, we don't have a big enough audience. And, like, I'm working, 60, 70 hours a week on the show in addition to my job. What am I going to do? So one way, and I guess this is another lesson I had to learn. It's like, okay, well, let me try doing another show to get the audience. And I guess what I learned in all irony was that, oh, wait, our audience is tied to the college schedule. Like, not all our listeners are college students or graduate students or high school students or parents of people in school. But I think when you combine all those things, it is. So when school's out of session, our audience doesn't grow. Like the rest of the, whenever school's in session, our audience is growing. Thus far, knock on wood. So at this point, I didn't have enough experience to say, oh, the reason the show's not growing is because it's summertime. So I was trying to wrestle control and force things by doing this sleep show. And it was fun. It was, but it was a force for the wrong reason. It wasn't a creative reason, and it would teach me another important lesson, which was at some point I was critically burned out, making 4 shows a week now instead of just 3. One of which was supposed to be about sleep, and that's pretty ironic when you're making a sleep podcast and you're not getting any. So I said to myself, what am I doing? The podcast is going to suffer, and I have this wonderful audience, and things are working. They're just not sustainable yet. Can I be patient? And I said, it just said, what do I do best? I make the podcast to put people to sleep the best, so let's focus on that. And that's carried me through. Like, at that point, it became a formal mission statement. I make the podcast to put you to sleep. Before that, it was what I said, but I didn't really know it was a mission statement. So now any decisions I make with the podcast, I say, is this going to help me keep making the podcast that puts people to sleep? Instead of saying, is this going to bring me certainty, or I'm nervous, or I don't know how to say, okay, is it going to help us keep making the podcast that puts people to sleep? And sometimes, not everybody's happy about those decisions, but that's how I process everything. Like, oh yeah, this partnership will help us keep making it because it's going to help us hire an editor. Or our most recent decision is like, okay, like with Farrell, is going to help us. They share a goal of non-paywalled archives. So, and that's what I want. That's going to help the podcast that puts people to sleep. Or finding these sponsors, or some sponsors that have come to the show and the price said, well, that's a lot of money, but that product, no, that won't work. So it's like, oh, is that going to help us keep making? That's the thing, not the next episode, but continue to make the podcast that puts people to sleep. So that was a lesson I learned here, August 2015, by making this sleep show that almost ended the whole podcast. And it would come, like, things would come out of this, because then at some point I said, okay, I got to stop doing that. And it would lead to me, like, months later, first, not that much longer, paying Chris Postal out of my pocket. And then, like, in October or November. And then eventually starting the Patreon, which has paid the editors ever since. Like, the 3rd or 4th month of the Patreon, we had enough money to pay the editors. And then it's helped to keep us like, at some point, I mean, I don't even know when this comes out, if I'll start taking a small paycheck from the Patreon or not. But yeah, so like October, but like having an emergency fund, that's what I was about to say. Like, so it's not just like, oh, we're just going to pay the editors and then I'll take the rest. It's like, okay, and then there's an emergency fund so we can pay the editors, because without editing help at this point, I don't know, So it's just like, again, it goes through that channel of, is that what's going to help us, instead of like what's easiest, or it's like, okay, what's going to help sustain this show? Okay, so we're still in Lady Witchbeard. We're at episode 15, and we're doing Metasta Snooze. And then we had another fun thing with Harpsichord Dictator and Emperor Zola, like this Halloween-themed series. This is Halloween of 2015 for a few months with my piano teacher and Drake and Mumble Bear and who's that? Dave Osborne. Super Dave Osborne. Let's see. And then we finished up Lady Witchbeard. Then we had 310. We did How to Break a Story. I mean, what's crazy to me is that was 310. Like, now we're at we're over 500. I've recorded over 500 episodes. So it's like, you telling me that was, and that was a year, like over a year ago, 2015. Now it's 2017. Yeah. So then Call Me Boris. That was a good, with the pillows. I can't believe that was over a year ago. We ran a repeat. Then there's the Shia LaBeouf thing. Then we're getting ready to kick off Roberta Claus. And Roberta Claus is when Chris Postal started editing. So he was editing these before they came out so they could do, we could learn how to do it. But I Then the Dickens Fair and these Claude Neon Report episodes, another Thanksgiving Day Parade with Gregor and Ray, Flaky and Lights on a Lake. So now we're getting close to under a year. Like a lot of holiday themed stuff, which this year I like had less of, and I'm always like torn of what to do. But I guess I like watching Halloween and Christmas and type stuff. Let's see. Then we kick off. Let's see where we kick off. Get Besso Season 2. Oh, Protector of Oakland Stone Fruit. That was 341. That was another important. I liked that episode. Bernie the Butterfly, Dust Mode Singularity. That was another good one. Selling Elements of Style. That was the first Get Bessos episode. Explainers of Catan. Knox Night. Knox Night was another one. Really happy with the end of that episode. And then we're like under a year. So yet a year ago, we started the Patreon and started paying and the past year has been a busy year. Let's see, Blame It on the Bile, my interview with Spleen. Then we run through Get Bessos, Robber Barons and Doilies. That was in May. Another Morley episode, Ghost Belts, and then Morley would pass away not that long after, which is sad. Adventures in Babysitting, that was another pitching episode. I liked that one. Who's the Dummy, Ventriloquist Dummy one. That one is like at some point here soon we'll have a revisiting to that. Mr. T and Me, that was I liked that one. Ray returned to go to California Adventure. Was still going through some Get Bessos episodes and Metastas News. Imaginary Friend Reunion. That was I liked that one. Yeah, somewhere along here. Is this last year? Yeah, April of 2016 when my aunt passed away. I was in Syracuse for that. Real-Time Recipe. Joy Dance Edition. Wow, that was a year, 10 months ago. Yeah, Erie Canal Museum. Episode I recorded on a plane. Scoots and Ray on a plane. Bird Bath, 395. That was a high, but that's probably still like a very high point for the podcast artistically. I don't know if we've hit it that high again. I don't know. There might be something recent I've been like pretty happy with. That's probably like one of the happiest moments. That and Water, like where I was just like, yeah, I love making this podcast. So that was May 31st, 2016. We're still in Get Bessos. 20 episodes. Pill pitch from Moranis. So now we're under a year. When we hit 400 in the late spring, early summer. Scooter versus Messy Bore Down. And we're in season 6 of GOT. Sidekick Lover. I don't remember what that one was. Mirror Maze Metaphor. Get Bessos season finale. There's the season 6 finale of GOT. Oh, so we must have paused. Did we pause Metastasis News for 10 weeks or something? Yeah, I can kind of remember the planning of this got complicated. Get Bessos season in review. Then a check-in on Tommen, 412, a season 6 recap of GOT. Then I took a week. I think I just did a week of recaps of Tommen and Pounce's adventures just to buy me a week buffer. I don't think I took a week off. I mean, I was out of town for 2 weeks, but there's always like if I'm running recaps, I'm almost always working because at this point we have a couple week buffer just in case something goes wrong with the show. Or if I want to take a break, but I prefer to keep these muscles in shape still. Then at some point, the listeners had sent me a quilt. I think that was earlier, but then the episode started to get released. I know I'd recorded that one of the episodes a while before, but I was holding him, I think, until Get Bessos was done. And then we had our first Carole King episode, which, wow, I can remember listening to that, going to have lunch with Blake, that makes half-hour intern. Let's see what else. Known Mower, So now we're into last summer, train carousel on location. That one I did, it came out in August. I think I did it, made that episode in May, recorded it, whatever the holiday is in May. Is that Labor Day or Memorial Day? Memorial Day. I think Sunday of Memorial Day weekend I recorded that. Then the Dream Quilt conclusion. Then kind of taught Introvert on Vacation. I don't know when I was on vacation, but this when the episode came out. Oh, I think this is what I did. I stretched, I don't know, I tried to stagger some time off because there's My Life with a Perm recap, Leaf losses, Olympics opening ceremonies, Club Senseless, a new pilot series episode. What does that mean? Oh, there's Nuns in Space, the first episode, August 18th. That's when the first episode came out. And we're still doing Metastasis News, Date Moi, that came out 4/27. Can't believe I've made like almost 100 episodes since then. And then we had Nuns in Space, a half-hour intern crossover episode, Dirt Bike Poets, Real-Time Bed Assembly, Dirty Dollhouse that I made for Helen Zaltzman, Dirty Doormat, Ray at Caribbean Beach Resorts, Nuns in Space, Lost Village. I did that for KDFC. Most of these I just did, like I told the person, like I didn't do it, that's like the radio station I fall asleep to. My Life with a Perm, Carole King crossover, Nuns in Space 8. And I'm on the last 50 episodes. Bernie the Butterfly debating with me about geese, Nuns in Space, Cardiff Giant Toe. Then when I was going on Harmontown, I was pretty nervous about that. But I did that episode about using Dan's Harmon story structure for feeling nothing. Another good Date Moi one. A Great Pumpkin review. Sylvan Beach Stroll. I liked that episode. Nun's Opinions, Knock Controversy, Dirty Sweater Dance, Burbank Hollywood Piano. That was on location from a hotel room. Kiss to Brook, Ray Universal Studios, and then Christmas, and then the holiday stuff. Christmas Tree That Took a Walk. That was a pretty good episode. It turned out well. Replay, like a Thanksgiving Day replay recap. Laurel and Hardy's March of the Wooden Soldiers, Real-Time Stuffing and Mashed Potatoes, Christmas Story Tell the Tape. That was a fun one to make, too. Then the Dickens Fair episodes, those were a little bit tougher. And then TNG kicked off. Oh, January. So, yeah, now we're this year, January 1st, 2017, 479, Darmok. And I got Brainbot Entertainer of the Year, January 3rd, 2017, 480. Nuns in Space was coming to a close. Then Farpoint, then Tesla Haircut, and then a review of Nuns in Space. And then Superdoll Stories kicked off. And, I mean, that pretty much brings us back to where we are. And, again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I mean, I think that was a pretty sleepy walk down memory lane, but, yeah, I mean, that's just I'm exhausted just going back there. So thank you so much. I couldn't do it with if you weren't listening and sleeping to the podcast, I wouldn't make it. If it didn't help people, I would have just cut it back or something, or it wouldn't be what it is today. The evolution of the podcast is because of you, and the things that keep it going is because of you, the listener. And I respect and treasure the relationship I have with all of you. And I'm so humbled that you listen and sleep to something that I make. Thank you so much, and good night. I want to thank everybody over on YouTube. Mackenzie, thanks, and good night. Panda, thank you, and good night. Mark, thanks, and good night. Bird Gaming, thank you, and good night. Stella, thank you, and good night. NJDJ Ninja, thank you and good night. IFAM, thanks and good night. Nikki, thank you and good night. Troy, thanks and good night. Imperio, thank you and good night. Isla, thanks and good night. Fallen Angel, thanks and good night. Lola, thank you and good night. Shauna, thanks and good night. Wyhen, thanks and good night. Gaming, thanks and good night. JHO, thanks and good night. Yeah, Real Lost Reality, thanks and good night. Sleepy, thanks and good night. It's just the sheriff, thanks. And so thanks everybody on YouTube. And then over on Twitter, I want to thank Jennifer L. Thanks and good night. Tammy with an I. Thanks and good night. Julie A. F. Ryder. Thanks and good night. Becky Texas. Thanks and good night. Lucy Creative. Thanks and good night. Jelly Sock. Thanks and good night. Elizabeth H. Thank you and good night. Thomas F. Thank you and good night. 10F10. Thanks and good night. Yante, shout out, good night. Romello, thanks and good night. Bassy, be like Babs, be like a friend, thanks and good night. Nicole, thanks and good night. Hal, thanks and good night. Mike Furman, thanks and good night. Allison E, thanks and good night. Valerie E, thank you and good night. Asbury, thank you and good night. Johnny T. Misconduct, thank you and good night. Blue Bug, thanks and good night. Tovi, thank you and good night. Jennifer B, thank you and good night. Megan B, thank you and good night. Rogue P, thank you and good night. Andrea G, thank you and good night. Maggie G, thanks and good night. Elena, thanks and good night. Don't want to wake you up till Sally W, thank you and good night. Lauren S., thanks and good night. Megan Oments, thank you and good night. Luviana, thank you and good night. Carrie S., thanks and good night. Emil, thanks and good night. Samela, thank you and good night. Tara A., thank you and good night. Elizabeth H., thank you and good night. What fishy? That fishy that I'm saying good night to. Miss Shizzy, thank you and good night. Allison F., thank you and good night. Brittany M., thanks and good night. Road to Boulder, Ken, thanks and good night. Finn, thank you and good night. I say Carrie S., I'm saying it again, thanks and good night. Young Bench, thanks and good night. Extra Crispy, thanks and good night. Sammy M., thank you and good night. Missy A., thank you and good night. Lauren G., thank you and good night. Woke JT, thank you and good night. Redfink, thanks and good night. Dix to the Blitz, thanks and good night. Miranda, thanks and good night. Carrie with an I, thanks. Rar Bunny, thank you and good night. I think my mom liked one of my tweets. I didn't even, Mom, thanks and good night. Jamie M., thank you and good night. Saffron Girl, thank you and good night. Brandon W., thanks and good night. Hannah, thanks and good night. Tyler T., thanks and good night. Cherish. I cherish the night you all have. Thanks and good night, everybody. All right, everybody, Scoots here. It's time to upgrade your apartment. It's time to upgrade your home, but do it the easy way. Go to livefeather.com and use the promo code SLEEP and join the furniture revolution. Just like music, just like movies, why would you want to own something that you want to change on a regular basis? Just like the majority of people don't want to be locked into watching the same movie every night, do you want to live with the same furniture forever? Because I don't know about you, but I've moved enough times and lived in enough places to say, you know what? It might just be easier if there was a service that I could just rent furniture from, but not just any furniture that's stylish, a furniture that's well made and looks good. And that's why you got to check out Feather. I mean, people move between 6 and 8 times before they hit their early 30s. Feather is a furniture rental company designed for people who want to feel at home no matter how often they move. They save you money. I mean, furnishing a one-bedroom can cost upwards of $6,000. And with Feather, you can furnish a bedroom with high-quality, beautifully designed furniture for the cost of your monthly utility bill. The delivery team brings the furniture directly to your home in as little as 7 days. No setting up a separate delivery through a third party. So you could go from an empty apartment to a fully furnished home without lifting a finger or assembling anything. Just picture that. new chest of drawers, a new nightstand, a new bed frame. And they have everything, rugs, lamps, wall art, and more. And then let's say you move to a different place, different layout, maybe a little different style. No problem. You can easily get furniture that works for that space. Plus, by renting from Feather, you're choosing a sustainable alternative to fast furniture that won't end up in landfills. Feather has changed the way I look at furnishing because I know I'm going to be moving at least a few more times in the next 4 years. And I'm tired of putting furniture together with a little wrench. Then I'm just going to put on CL for free in a year or two. I want something that looks good, that works well, but is hassle-free. And that's why I love Feather. So try a new way to furnish your home. Right now, Feather has an exclusive offer just for Sleep With Me listeners. If you go to livefeather.com and use the promo code SLEEP, you'll receive $500 off your first month. That's livefeather.com and use our promo code SLEEP for $500 off your first month. Get over there and send me some pictures. So thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. As I tuck in here, I just wanted to let you know about two things. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. That's what I was talking about earlier. Free way to just get rewarded for spreading the word about the show. You could get an ad-free feed, podcast feed. So if you say, well, I can't afford to be a patron, but I want ad-free episodes, you can earn that through sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. You could also win a pair of sleep phones. You could get some bonus episodes. So there's a lot you could do. And that's at sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. Or if you're already a patron and you say, I don't want to listen to the ads, or I don't want to listen to the thank yous, I just want the intro and the episode, make sure to set up your patron feed in a podcast app. Just go from your phone or your device, go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron feed. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron feed, and get it set up. You'll log into Patreon, you'll click allow, and then you can connect your bonus content or your membership to a great podcast app. There's a lot of free podcast apps there listed, and then you'll be good to go. Or if you want to become a patron, you can still use that link, and then you can sign up, and then you can use that link again to get all your bonus content set up. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron feed. Thanks, everybody.